Max here, and today I want to talk to you about finding a job. Now, 99% of us at one stage or another will have a job or definitely be looking for a job, and it can be very challenging to find work. And while I would love to sit here and tell you it's easy to get a job, the reality is that it isn't. And even if you have this magical free job post-it note and you gave that in to an employer, unfortunately that's not going to do the trick, and it's a lot more difficult now to find work in the first place. Obviously, with all that's going on with COVID-19, it means that employers are making cuts, and unfortunately that means redundancies, and so it might be tricky for people to get back into work, especially if you've had a job for a long time and you've not been searching for a while. So try and use these steps today, and that will maximise your chances of getting a job, and hopefully it will be useful. So let's get right into it. Firstly, you have to figure out what you actually want, what the sort of job is that you want. There's a lot of different jobs in many different industries. It's hard to find what it is that you're actually interested in. But there are a few key questions that you can ask yourself. So first of all, what sort of things do you enjoy doing in your spare time? If you can identify these, it will make your search for a job a lot easier, because it will help you to categorize the things that you're interested in and the things that you may like to pursue. And a lot of people will say, do your hobby and follow your hobbies and your passions, and then the money will come from that. And that's actually really good advice. But maybe at this time you haven't figured out how to make that hobby into work. This could come further down the line. So the second question that you need to ask yourself is, what are the 3 to 5 key skills that you have? So these are your 3 or 5 best selling points that you think would sell yourself to an employer. And if you can identify these, then it will help you in finding the right job for you. And if you struggle to identify what your key strengths and skills are, then ask people that know you well, because quite often we don't take the time to reflect on ourselves and our strengths, and I think that's an important thing to do. And if you're not able to do that, then certainly those people around you will be able to do that for you. The third question, where would you like to work? So location for some people is a big sticking point. But whether that's kind of whether you want to work from home, start your own business, that sort of thing, or whether you want to work in a city, in an office, or whether you want to kind of work in the countryside, or even if it's a specific location. Again, this can eliminate a lot of different jobs and possibilities straight off the bat, and make your process kind of like an arrowhead, if you imagine, kind of. So you start off broad and then you work your way into the middle to the point where you figure out exactly what job it is that you want to go for. And then the final question, and this is really, again, specific to you, if you have any specific requirements that you need in the job. So whether that's a certain amount of pay to live, or even if you need the company to fit in with your ethical and moral beliefs, that could be an important thing for you. Once you've answered these 4 questions, you should be able to have a rough idea of the sort of career that you want to go into. And that should help you on your next step, step 2, which is researching. So there's loads of different sites out there. There's Indeed, Reed, Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, which I'm going to do a video on later. But do some research, search for the sorts of jobs. So again, you can use your answers to those questions previously mentioned to figure out the sort of job and to narrow down your search. Again, thinking of that arrowhead, kind of going towards it. Having searched for a while, using a variety of different sites and resources, you might have found a few key jobs, and you may want to kind of copy and paste these into a Word document with links to them, so that you can refer back to them. Your next key step is to kind of download the job descriptions and person specifications for each job, and you then need to look at what your kind of key skills are. So using the key skills that you identified earlier, and comparing them to the skills and experience required for your jobs that you're looking for. If there's any areas that you're struggling with or that you don't currently meet, think of what things that you can do to help you meet those. So whether there's a health and safety requirement training or qualification, if you don't currently have that, then you can look for ways in which you can get that, or speak to people who may know a route in to get that. Your next step is to create and update your CV. So again, I'm going to do a full video on this later because I think it's too in-depth to cover in this video, and it's the first thing that an employer is going to look at for you. So you need to make a really good impression. You need to make your CV stand out from everyone else, and you need it to not go in the bin. A lot of people with their CV will make it very generic. You need yours to stand out. You may already have a CV, and if you do, then make sure it's up to date with all your relevant experience and skills. And if you haven't got one, then make sure you create one. There's loads of different templates you can use online, and there's different guidance as well. Step 4 in this process is to look at your network. You may have heard the phrase, it's not what you know, it's who you know. This phrase gets repeated a lot when job searching, and I want to explain a bit more about it. So basically, people make the world go round. Without people, there's no jobs. Without people, there's no businesses. And so, in order to maximize your chances, you have to know people. And you could be the most qualified person in the world, but the people that you know can give you that extra edge. They can give you some expertise and some insider knowledge within the industry, or within the job, or within the company. Or they can open doors for you that you couldn't have done on your own. A lot of companies hire internally, so sometimes they'll have vacancies which are only available to internal candidates. If you know someone, or you know someone that knows someone, you might have another route in that not many people will have. And so it's important that if you've identified your job, or if you've identified a company or an industry, that you pursue and try and find out what links you can have into that industry. So whether that is speaking to your friends and family, or using LinkedIn to try and establish some connections and some networks, it could give you an additional route in that other people won't have. A good tip, once you've found someone who's relevant and who could be an important connection, is to ask them how they got to where they are today, and that could give you some inspiration or some ideas for a route to follow into how you want to get there. But also if they have any advice for you. Now that is a really, really important question, and one that could set you apart from everyone else. If they've got any specific kind of tips for that industry, that is going to set you apart, because a lot of the advice that you see on the internet, or just generally, it tends to be fairly generic, whereas that gives you a chance to kind of hone your skills to that particular job or industry. Tip number 5 is attitude. In my experience, the most important employability skill is attitude. What exactly is a good attitude? A good attitude is where you're positive, it's where you're confident, it's where you're engaging, and it's where you listen. And having a good attitude is really, really key to job searching, and it can be really difficult to motivate yourself when you keep getting knocked back. You send hundreds of emails, or you fill in lots of different applications and you hear nothing back. You think that you're not good enough, or you think you don't have the skills. And the good attitude is that resilience. It's being able to overcome that and keep applying and keep going, and know that you will get there to the end, and that will show in your eventual outcome of getting a job. With the whole lots of different applications and no outcome, that leads directly into tip number 6, which is preparation and review. So if you are at the stage where you've sent out lots of different applications in the past, it's time for you to review those applications, see what you did wrong, or maybe what things that you could do better. A mistake that I made when I was searching for work and for placements was I created a CV, and then it was like a blanket CV, so it was a very generic CV, it wasn't tailored, and I sent that to all of the different places that I wanted to be employed by. And that obviously is not good, because each job has different skills, different requirements, and different characteristics which are going to be more essential for each job. So it's important that if that is the case, that you then review whether you can tailor your application to each job, and using those kind of things that we've already discussed in terms of your matching your key skills to the job description and looking at the person's specification, so that you can ensure that your CV and your cover letter covers everything that they're after, and that is one of the key things to maximise your chances at getting a job. Obviously, with tailoring each CV and making a CV per employer, that takes a lot more time, but it will maximise your chances. Again, I will cover more about CVs and how you can tailor them and that sort of thing in another video, but it will take a lot more time to do that, but you're going off quality, not quantity here. A lot of people's approach is to say, oh, I applied for like 100 jobs last week, which is great, but were they quality applications, or were they that blanket CV that went off to all the different employers, which is very generic and is likely just to go in the bin? So again, with the prepare thing, before submission, one of the key things that you can do is to ask your friends and your family and those around you that may be able to help you. One of the most difficult things is when you have been working on something for so long, when you've been writing the same application and you're reading the same thing over and over again, it can become very repetitive and you can skip things which might be essential. And so having that different perspective can be really, really important and can help you to stand out and give you that polished look. Final step number 7, is submission. So this is where you've gone through all of the previous 6 steps and you're at the stage where you're ready to submit your job application. Now, obviously the next step is to say good luck with your job search, but also don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Just because you've spent a lot of time on one application and on one job does not mean that you will get that job. Due to the circumstances and the ever-growing population, it means that the job market is more and more competitive, and as a result it's harder to make yourself stand out. So don't think just because like that's my dream job, I want to get that, it means that you'll get it, because unfortunately that's just not how it works. So make sure that you apply for multiple different jobs, and if you hear back from all of them and you get all of them, great, but don't just apply for one. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope that you found it useful. Subscribe and like if you want to hear more about this sort of thing, and for more videos about CVs and employability. And if you have any additional tips or tricks that I missed, or any stories and experiences about finding work, then I would love to hear about them in the comments. Feel free to put it down there. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!